Hello and thank you for purchasing the Hero Slider Shopify section by qwiqode. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use it. With this section, you can add a slider of hero images along with custom text that includes a subtitle, title, a text block, and a button. To get started, let's click on a slide to add some custom content to it. The first option is the main image field, and with this, we can add a custom image. So we can add an image like this. Next, we have the main image for mobile. So this is in case you want to use a separate image on mobile screens. You can add an image using this field. So let's say we want a different like this. You'll see that on mobile, we're showing this image instead of this one. Let's go back to desktop. Next, we have an image link option. And this is in case you want to add a link on top of the image. You can add it using this field. So maybe we can link it to the fashion collection. Okay, next we have a toggle for opening that link on a new tab. Okay, so by default it's disabled, but you can enable it using this field. Next we have a subtitle option, so maybe we can add something like this, and then on title we can add something like this. Okay, and then on text block I have something on my clipboard, so I'm gonna paste it like this. All these three fields are rich text, so that means that you can change the format of this or the wrapping. For example, on title, by default, this text has an H2 wrapping, but you can change it to be an H1, H3, or any other of this list, okay? But for now, I'm gonna keep it as H2. You can also format any of these words. For example, you can do this, select the word and make it bold like this, or italic, so you have that option. But for now, I'm gonna keep it like this. Next, we have a button label, and here you can add something like this, buy now, and then we can link it to a product. And down here, we have an option for opening that button link on a new tab. Okay, but in case you don't want to use the button, you can just clear the label and it will look like this without any buttons. Okay, but for this example, I'm gonna keep it because I want to link it to the product. Next, we have the secondary image option, and this is only available if you bought the original Hero Slider or the Hero Slider 3. So if you have the Hero Slider 2, you won't see this option, because on the Hero Slider 2, you only have one image per slide. But in this case, I have the original Hero Slider, so I can add a secondary image. So we can add something like this. You also have an option for a secondary image for mobile. So maybe we can add a different one. Let's say we have something like this, and we go to mobile, we'll see that secondary image. Next, we have the media styling, and the first option is the media dimensions. By default, it's original, but you can add any of these other sizes. For example, if I select square, it will look like this. You can also select horizontal, vertical, portrait, or landscape. Okay, but for this example, I'm gonna keep it as original. In this case, we won't see the difference because the original is landscape. Next, we have the main image width. And if you have the Hero Slider 2, you won't see this field, because with this field, we control the width of this main image. So because it's only one image, we don't need this field on the Hero Slider 2. But on this example, we need it because we're using two images on the Hero Slider. Okay, so in case you want to change it, you can use this field to adjust this width. So maybe we can do something like a third. Okay. Next, we have the main image position, and by default it's on the left, but you can also select it on the right. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it on the left. Next, we have the main image vertical position, and this is only available if you have custom section height enabled on the section settings. So we have this option in the section settings to add a custom height, and with this you can control that height. So in case you have a height like this, so with this field you can select it to be at the top, at the center, or at the bottom. But for this example, I'm gonna keep it as center, and I'm gonna keep this disabled for now. Let's go back. Okay, next we have the main image margin from secondary image. So by default it's 0, but if you want to add some space between the media elements, you can use this field. So for example, we can add it to be 20 pixels. We can do something like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep it as 0 because I really like how it looks like this. Next, we have the secondary image styling, and the first option is the vertical alignment. When using a secondary image, that image will always be 100% of the area. For example, let's say the main image is less than 50%, you'll see that the secondary image is 100%, but because the image is taller, you'll see some cropping. Okay, so with this field, you can adjust that position of that secondary image. Okay, maybe if it's like this, use this to adjust how it looks in here. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it like this. and this to be center. Okay. Next, we have the secondary image position on mobile. So by default, this image will be at the bottom of the main image like this, but you can also select it to be at the top or to be hidden on mobile, okay? But for this example, I'm gonna keep it at the bottom of main image like this, okay? Let's go back. Next, we have the slide styling. And the first option is the content background type. So right now by default it's none, but you can also add a background color and select a color from here. So we can do something like this. So this way you can add a background color to the text area, okay? You can also select it to be gradient and choose your gradient from here. Okay, so with the gradient, we can create an effect like this, okay? Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it without any background color. So I'll select none. Next, we have the slide overlay. And with this, you can add a color on top of the image. Okay, so you can add a color like this and control the opacity of that overlay using this field. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it around there. Okay, next we have the slide content styling, and the first option is the content position. So by default it's on center, but you can align this content to any of the edges of the slide. For example, you can put it at the top left, top center, top right. Okay, so you can control that position, and maybe for this slide, I'll put it at the bottom left like this. Okay, next we have the text alignment. By default it's center, but you can also select to be aligned left or right, like this, okay? But for now, I'm gonna keep it as left. Next, we have the color options for the elements, and the first one is title, so we can add our own color to the title. And for the subtitle, maybe we can do something like this, okay? And the text block like this. Next, we have the slide content styling for mobile, and the first option is the background type. So you can add a background color, this, and select a color from here, maybe something like this. Okay, so you can add a background color or add a gradient. Okay, the same way we tested with this. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it as none. Okay, and right now it looks like a background color, but that's the overlay color. Okay, so if you have an overlay color, it will be applied to the whole slide on desktop and mobile. But let's say you don't have an overlay, so it will look like this. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it like that. Next, we have the slide content position for mobile. And this is only available when over image is selected on the content area position for mobile. And this is from the section settings. Let me show you. If we go to the section settings and we scroll to the content area styling, we'll see this option of the content area position. So by default is below the image, but you can also select it to be over the image like this. Okay, so when it's over the image and we go back to the slide, we can control the text position by selecting top, center, or bottom. But for now, I'm gonna keep it center, okay? And I'll put this back because I really like the content to be below the image, like this. Let's go back to the slide. Next, we have the text alignment for mobile. So right now it's center, but you can also select it to be on the left or the right, like this. But for now, I'm gonna keep it center. Okay, and then we have the colors for mobile. So you have the title color. So maybe we can do something like this. Subtitle. And the text block, maybe I'll darker gray like this. Let's go back to desktop. Next, we have the button colors. So you have the text color. So maybe we can do something like this. And the border color to be like that. Actually, if we do the background color like this, it'll look better. Next, we have the button hover colors. And these colors are applied when a user puts the mouse over the button. So it's that color. So you can change those colors. So maybe we can do something like this. So you have these colors on hover. Okay, so now let's add some more content to other slides. So maybe we can do something like this, and maybe the image to be landscape, and we can update all this text like this. Okay, and on bottom we can do by now. I'll link it to a collection. Next, we have the secondary image option, and because I'm using the original hero slider, I can combine some slides with 2 images and some others with just 1. But if you have the hero slider 3, you always need to add that second image. Okay, and remember, if you have the hero slider 2, you won't see these fields. Let's add some other styling. So maybe we can add a background color to this slide. We can do something like this, actually a little lighter, like that. And maybe on slide overlay, we add some overlay like this. Okay, and maybe we put it on the bottom left. Okay, so we can style it. Okay, so we can add those colors. And on mobile, let's see, maybe on mobile, we add the same highlight. And on button, maybe like this. Okay, and on hover, we can do something like this. Okay, now I'm gonna add some content and styling to the last slide and speed up the process. Okay, now that we added the content for all slides, let's go to the section settings. In the section settings, we see multiple options, and the first one is the section class. This option is for advanced users, and it's useful if you have multiple sections and you are sharing the same styling between them. Okay, let's say we have another section like this one, the hero slider, and we duplicate it. Okay, and I'm gonna move this to make them different. Okay, and let's say you have a class on your CSS that is called dark border, so you add that class in here, and you can also add it here. Okay, and let's say we have some custom CSS. I'm gonna add this. You can add the custom CSS on your theme or using this free widget from our store called custom CSS. But let's say the dark border class has a border of 10 pixels solid black like this. Okay, so if you add this same class to this section class, you will apply that custom CSS for the section. Okay, so you can add that section class in here to apply that custom styling to those sections. But for now, I'm gonna remove it because I want to style it only with these settings. Also, we can remove this other section. Next, we have the section styling, and the first option is the background color. So we can add a color in here, okay, and that will be behind the slider. But at this moment, we don't see that color because our section is full width, and also it has a full width content. Okay, so when this is enabled, the content will always expand 100% of the section like this. Okay, but let's say this is disabled. We'll see that background color over here because the section is full width, but the content has a max width of 1280. So this will not expand 100% of the area. Okay, but if you want to keep it expanded like before, you can enable this and it will always expand like that. Okay, so that's when using full width on the section width, but you can also use regular width. And when using regular width, this content max width will be the total width of the section. So if we expand this, you'll see that the section stays there. So it doesn't expand all the way, even though we have a background color. But if you want to have that background color visible, you will do it like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep it as full width with the full width content like this. Next, we have the custom section height. And this is the setting that we enabled earlier, that when this is enabled, you can control the height of the whole section. Okay, so this height will be forced into all slides like this. But for now, I'm gonna keep it disabled because I want the height to be dynamic to the slides. Next, we have the section top and bottom margin, and this is the outside distance, so it's 20 pixels from this previous section. So if you increment this, you'll make more room on the outside. Okay, the same at the bottom. So if you increment this, you'll make more room below the section. Next, we have the horizontal top and bottom padding. And while the margin is the outside distance, the padding is the inside distance. Okay, so right now, this 20 pixels at the top and the bottom is the distance over here. Okay, but if you increment this, you'll see that you're making more room in here. The same if this was at the top. This will be the distance between the top of the section and the beginning of the content. But for now, I'm gonna keep it both at 20. Next, we have the styling settings for mobile. We have the top and bottom margin, horizontal, top and bottom paddings. Next, we have the slider settings, and the first option is the slides to show. So by default is 1, okay, but you can also select to be 2 slides to show like that. Okay, but in this case, because these 2 slides have different heights on the images, they will look like this. Okay, so you can either change the width of the image in here, or if you want to keep it all the same height, you will enable this and it will always expand 100% like that. So maybe something like this. So that's in case you want to use 2 slides, and you can also use 3 slides. Okay, so right now we have the first slide, the second, and the third. So you have that option. But for now, I'm gonna keep it as 1. Okay, next we have the slides to show mobile. By default is 1. Okay, but you can also select it to be 2, so it will look like this. And this background color is coming from here. So let's say we don't have a background color. We'll see it like that. Okay, so in here it looks like this because we have 2 images and this one only has 1 image. Okay, but remember that you can adjust those settings on the slide. Okay, but for this example, I want to keep it as 1. Let's go back. Next, we have the slider carousel autoplay. And when this is enabled, these slides will change automatically like that. Okay, and with this slider carousel speed, you can adjust it so they transition a little faster. But for now, I'm gonna keep it disabled, okay, because I want the users to explore manually all the slides. Okay, and actually section height, we can keep it as default like this. Okay, so we can ignore this section height, and that way we keep the height dynamic depending on the slide. Okay, next we have the slider animation, and by default it's fade. So when you go to the next slide, you see that effect, but you can also select it to be slide. And when using slide, you'll see the slides animating horizontally like that. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it as fade. Next, we have the slider navigation, and by default is both arrows and dots. So we have these arrows and we have these dots, but you can also select it to be only arrows or only dots, or you can select it to be none like this. And if you have this enabled, it will create this cool effect of the slides transitioning automatically like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep it disabled, and I want to keep both the arrows and dots. Next, we have the slider infinite scroll. So when this is enabled and you go to the last slide, you can click on next and it will go back to the first slide. If you keep it disabled at the end, this won't be clickable. But for now, I'm gonna keep it enabled so the users can click again to go to the first slide. Next, we have the slider dot size, and by default it's medium, but you can select it to be large or to be small. Okay, like this. Next, we have the slider dots position. You can put it at the center or to be on the left or to be on the right. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it like this. Next, we have the slider dots position for mobile, and this is only available when the content area position on mobile is set to below image. And we already have it like that, so let me show you. So you can select it to be at the bottom of the image or to be at the top of the image like this. So you see those dots in here. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it at the bottom. Let's go back. Next, we have the slider dots wrapper border radius. And right now we don't have a background color, so we won't see it. But if we add the background color using this field, we can control that border radius using this field. Okay, so now that the wrapper has a color, if you increment this, you'll see that we're controlling the curves around the edges of the wrapper. Okay, so if you add it like this, it will create this oval shape. Next, we have the vertical and horizontal padding of the wrapper. So right now it's 10 pixels. So these dots are 10 pixels from the edge of the wrapper. If you want to increment this, you'll make more room on the inside like this. Okay, and the same with the horizontal padding, you can create this effect. Okay, so maybe if we change this to large, we see more difference like this. Next, we have the vertical distance from edge. So right now it's 10 pixels from here. Okay, but if you increment this, you'll push them to the inside of the slide. But for now, I'm gonna keep it around 10. Next, we have the horizontal margin, and this is only when the dots are either on the left or on the right. Let me show you. If we have them here, on the right, with this field, you can control the horizontal distance from the edge. So this is the vertical and this is the horizontal. Okay, so you can increment this to push them to the inside. Okay, the same if they were on the left, like that. But right now, because we have the button there, maybe we can keep it at the center. Okay, and maybe the vertical distance can be less. Next, we have this same vertical distance, but for mobile, so you can control it using this field. And down here, we have the slider dots border radius. So right now it's 0, but if you increment this, you'll see the curve on those dots. And actually, I think the padding is a little too much, so I'm gonna reduce it like this. Okay, next we have the slider dots gap, and with this, we control the distance between them. Okay, so you can adjust it using this field. But for now, I'm gonna keep it around 10. Okay, and down here we have the colors for the dots. Okay, so if you want to change the color, you can use this field. And maybe the wrapper can be darker and the colors to be on the dots like this. Okay, cool. Okay, next we have the colors for the arrows. So you can change the line color using this field and also the wrapper. Maybe we can do something like that. Next we have the custom left and right arrow. And this is in case you have your own arrows, you can add them using this field. So right now I don't have any on my library, but I'm gonna use this as an example. So you see it right here, and the same with the right arrow. You can add your own custom arrows. But for now, I'm gonna keep them blank because I want to use the ones from the section. Okay, next we have the arrow's distance from edge. So right now it's 20 pixels, but if you increment this, you'll bring those arrows into the slide. You can also select it to be 0 and it will be right on the edges. But for now, I'm gonna keep it on 20 like this. Next, we have the content area styling, and the content area is this right here when we add the text. So right now it's 50%, but if you adjust this, you can make it smaller or bigger. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it like this. So it creates like a little box. Next, we have the border radius, and with this, you control the corners. So maybe we won't see it right now. Okay, but if we add a background color to this slide, we'll see it. So if we have something like this, let's go back and we go to the border radius. If you increment this, you control these corners over here. You can control these corners over here. Okay, next we have the top, bottom, and horizontal padding. And this is the inside. So right now it's 20 pixels from here, and from here. But if you increment this, you'll make more room like that. The same with the horizontal one. Okay, next you have the same settings for mobile, but on mobile, you can adjust the position of the text. So by default, it's below image, but you can put it over the image like this. But for now, I'm going to keep it below image. Let's go back, and then you have the same top, bottom, and horizontal padding. Next, we have the text styling, and the first one is for the title. So it's this one over here, and we have multiple options. And the first one is to use a custom font. So when this is enabled, you can choose a font from this list. Okay, so maybe we can do something like this. Okay, cool. Next, we have the custom font family name. And this is in case you're loading a custom font on your theme. Let's say you have a Helvetica. You'll put here Helvetica. And this text will grab that custom font from your theme. But for now, I'm going to leave it blank because I want to use this font instead. Next, we have the font weight. With this, we control how bold the font looks. So you can make it bold or have it thin or keep it default like this. Okay, next we have the top and bottom margin. And this is the outside distance from the title. So right now it's 20 pixels over here. But if you increment this, you'll make more room below and the same at the top like this. Okay, but for now, I'm going to keep it around 10 because I don't need so much room. Next, we have the title font size, and by default is 0. The same with the line height and letter spacing. And when using 0, this text will be the default from your theme. But if you want to add a custom font size, you can use this range to increment that size. Next, we have the line height, and this is vertical distance between the characters. So right now it's 0, so it's my theme's default. But if you increment this, you can control that distance. So maybe if we do something like that, you'll make more room between the characters. But for now, I'm going to keep it 0 because I really like the default from my theme. Next, we have the letter spacing. And while this is the vertical distance, the letter spacing is the horizontal distance. So right now it's 0, but if you increment this, you'll make room between these characters. So it will look like that. But for now, I'm going to keep it 0. Next, we have the same settings for mobile, top and bottom margin, font size, line height, and letter spacing. Okay, and down here we have the same styling settings, but for the subtitle, which is this one over here. So maybe we can add a custom font like this, okay, and make it bolder like that. And also we don't need this 10 pixels at the bottom because we already have 10 pixels from the title. So this distance is fine for now. Okay, so maybe we can increment the size. Okay, line height and letter spacing, we can keep it like that. But remember, if you have a bottom margin as 0, but you still see some space, that space might be coming from the other elements. So right now, this space over here is from the title top margin. So if you put it like this, we'll see that it's way closer. So you can either use the top margin of this element or the bottom margin from this other element. Okay, next we have the same settings for mobile. You have the top and bottom margin, the font size, line height, and letter spacing. Next, we have the text block styling, which is this one over here. So you can use a custom font. So maybe we can do something like that, and maybe the font size a little bigger. Okay, and the top and bottom margin is fine. Actually, I'm gonna reduce this because I want to make it closer to the title. Next, you have the same settings for mobile, top and bottom margin, font size, line height, and letter spacing. And down here we have the stylings for the button. So you can add a custom font. So maybe we can do something like this. Okay, next you have the max width. So if you increment this, you make your button bigger. Okay, but maybe for now I'm gonna keep it as 180. That's fine. Okay, next you have the border width, which is the outside of the button. And on this slide, we have it to be the same color as the inside of the button. But let's say you have a different color. If we go to the slide and we add a different color, you'll see that border around the button. So by default it's 2 pixels, but you can adjust this to make it bolder or put it 0 to not show any borders at all. Next, we have the border radius for the button, so you can control the corners of the button using this. Okay, next you have the top margin. So if you increment this, you make more room on the outside of the button. Okay, so you can either use the top margin or the bottom margin of the text block. Okay, next you have the horizontal or vertical padding, and that's the distance inside the button. For example, if you have this to be bigger, you're adding more room on the inside of the button. But for now, we don't need so much room, so I'm gonna keep it like this. Okay, next we have the button font size, so you can increment this to make this button bigger. Maybe we don't need that much. Okay, that's fine for now. And then we have the little spacing, so you can control that distance between the characters inside the button. But for now, I'm going to keep it 0. Okay, and then at the bottom, we have the same styling settings for mobile: the top margin, font size, little spacing, horizontal or vertical padding. Okay, so let's see the other slides. Okay, I really like how it looks, so I'm going to save it. Thank you again. If you have any questions or if you run into any issues, please don't hesitate to contact us via the support page on our website. Thank you and take care.